not just be another culmination of Marvel Studios' six-phase saga, but a triumphant celebration of more than 30 years of Marvel movies made across multiple franchises over the last 3 decades. After the Fox acquisition in 2019, Marvel regained the rights to both the X-Men as well as the Fantastic Four, both of which will be featured in Avengers Doomsday. Even after a very lengthy cast reveal, ranging from the likes of Chris Hemsworth to Patrick Stewart to Pedro Pascal, as well as, of course, Robert Downey Jr. in the title role of Victor Von Doom, there were some very noticeable absent names from not only the pre-Marvel Studios era, but as well as the current MCU. In this video, I aim to guess which characters may appear and which ones probably won't appear. I would also like to preface that this includes potential appearances for the follow-up Avengers Secret Wars. Just because a certain actor or character does not make it into Doomsday does not rule out a potential reprisal for Secret Wars. We've seen this in Infinity War as well as Endgame, and it would not be shocking to see something similar happen here. Doctor Doom's plans and machinations could very well be a reason why some of these characters are already absent from Avengers Doomsday, but that doesn't mean they can't come back for Avengers Secret Wars. Some may not even be a part of either project, with some actors already confirming or stating that they are either retired or not returning at all. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in and see who may or may not show up for, of course, Avengers Doomsday as well as possibly Secret Wars. Alright, first up, this is the biggest one and arguably the largest reason why this film is happening to begin with. And that, of course, is Kang the Conqueror, played by Jonathan Majors. Given the lackluster results of Ant-Man Quantumania and the verdict of Jonathan Majors' case and trial, it goes without saying as to why Avengers Kang Dynasty is now called Avengers Doomsday. Ultimately, I think trying to set up the big bad of the multiverse saga by way of the third Ant-Man movie was a massive misstep and misfire. While Jonathan Majors' Kang was a highlight of the film did not perform well. Coupled with the increasing allegations against Majors, as well as the guilty verdict, Marvel immediately dropped the actor. This in turn led to a creative shift from Avengers Kang Dynasty being retrofitted into Avengers Doomsday. However, one could argue that the character's story was tied up by the end of the second season of Loki. Also, while Kang and Doom often team up in the comics, and it would be ample for Doom to be the one to effectively end the Council of Kangs, the actual likelihood of Jonathan Majors returning only to be killed off feels a little anticlimactic. But since there is no formal announcement of Major's return to the character, it is safe to say that the character of Kang is likely going to be shelved for quite some time. I do not see this character showing up in Doomsday or Secret Wars. If Marvel chooses to use the character again somewhere down the line, more than likely in a post-Secret Wars era, I don't doubt that they will likely also recast with a different actor. Alright, now that I've taken care of Kang the Conqueror, let's move into the legacy castings, i.e. the Fox/pre-Marvel Studios era of Marvel films. First and foremost, I doubt any of the first-class cast from those new X-Men films, i.e. First Class, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, as well as New Mutants. I don't think any of these characters will join in any capacity. I could be totally wrong. I could be 1,000% wrong. Any of those characters could possibly show up. But considering who is confirmed for Avengers Doomsday, i.e., Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, the likes of the original casting for those X-Men movies are present, I do not think that you will see James McAvoy or Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence, Nicholas Hoult, or even Sophia Turner, Ty Sheridan, Cody Smith-McPhee. I don't think any of them will be present at all. And of course, Oscar Isaac is also Moon Knight now, so no Apocalypse either. Not that that really matters because Apocalypse is dead. Secondly, I doubt any of the prior iterations of the Fantastic Four will prize any of their roles from Avengers into Avengers Doomsday, considering the main cast of the Fantastic Four First Steps have already been confirmed to appear. While it is not out of the question, nor do I think it would be confusing for audiences to see versions of the same characters on screen at the same time, hey, Spider-Man No Way Home, I do not think Jessica Alba, Michael Chiklis, Miles Teller, Jamie Bell, basically either of the two previous versions of the Fantastic Four, I don't think any of them are going to be in this movie at all for what would likely be minimal amount of screen time for possible multiversal universe ending scenarios. Truthfully, I think Marvel Studios is more focused on expanding the current roster more than revisiting the past. And honestly, if they really wanted to, they could probably just use and retrofit some archive footage and make it look like the universe is ending without actually having to have those actors present. But, you know, it remains to be seen. There are rumors swirling that the Council of Reeds may make an appearance in Fantastic Four First Steps, and we may or may not see Ione Grufford in reprising the role as Reed Richards. So we'll see, but again, I doubt, highly doubt, that either of the previous two versions of the Fantastic Four will appear. While we finally got a Gambit in Channing Tatum, it would be an absolute shame to not have a Rogue. Unfortunately, due to undisclosed health issues Anna Paquin has been working through, I am not entirely sure that she will reprise the role of Rogue/Marie for Avengers Doomsday or even Secret Wars alongside her respective X-Men castmates, as much as I would love for her to do so. Fingers crossed that she does get into a good place to come aboard for the fun, but unfortunately, given the real-world circumstances, I don't think she's going to be showing up. Wishing nothing her but the best, but if she does make a surprise appearance, that would be great. However, if Marvel also possibly recast the role, that is a possibility, but I don't know that they will. I would really like to see Anna Paquin come back for the role, but time will tell. I'm going to put this as unlikely, unfortunately. Again, I would like to see her come back, but I do not think that Rogue will make an appearance in Avengers Doomsday or Secret Wars. Next up on the list is Halle Berry, aka Storm. Halle Berry has stated that she is not in Avengers Doomsday and wasn't even called for Deadpool and Wolverine. This is another case in which I would love to see an iconic X-Men character reprise their role, and hopefully she's just playing coy. But given that she was not, in fact, invited back for Deadpool and Wolverine, I have to wonder if she may not come back for this or even Secret Wars. Now, it would be really cool if she does show up, and I really am keeping my fingers crossed that Storm will pop in for Doomsday and hopefully Secret Wars. But however, like I mentioned up top, because of whatever Doctor Doom has planned, there could be reasons why that Storm may not be present from the go. But remains to be seen. Fingers crossed that Halle Berry does get to show up for the fun that is Avengers Doomsday. I will categorize this as possibility, but leaning towards unlikely. The next mutant on the list, of course, is Jean Grey, played by Famke Janssen. Despite not being given the call for Deadpool and Wolverine, Famke Janssen not returning as Jean Grey almost feels like a missed opportunity if she does not come back for Avengers Doomsday, especially considering James Marsden is back as Scott Summers, and the two are more often than not depicted as lovers in movies as well as the animated series 100%, as well as modern comics in general. There is one name that I am hoping that's being kept as a surprise. It would, of course, be Famke Janssen's Jean Grey. She is one of my favorite characters. She is one of the most powerful members of the X-Men, classified as one of the few Omega-level mutants, and would be a great ally in the charge against Doctor Doom. However, Doctor Doom could be the reason that Jean Grey may not even be present in Doomsday. That said, though, if she's not in Doomsday, there is a possibility she could still show up for Secret Wars, and I hope one, if not both, hopefully that is the case. As far as Jean Grey appearing, I will categorize this as a possibility. All right, next up we've got Josh Brolin. That's right, coming back as Cable. So Josh Brolin has already expressed interest in returning in Avengers Doomsday as Thanos. But what if we saw him come back as Cable? This would be just like when Chris Evans returned as Johnny Storm in Deadpool and Wolverine. Imagine the cast hears a voice and someone says that it's Thanos, only for it to be revealed to be Cable. Considering James Marsden is also returning as Scott Summers, it would be really interesting to see the father-son dynamic shown on screen for the first time, albeit it would be in an Avengers movie, not an X-Men movie, but still, the statement still stands. This one, specifically Josh Brolin as Cable, I am 50-50 on, but ultimately I think this falls into a fun surprise category, more so than hard confirmed. But again, if it did happen, again, as I'm going to reiterate, it would be in the same vein as Chris Evans coming back as Johnny Storm. It would be a complete bait and switch, and it would be absolutely astonishing if it happened. Okay, next up we have Iceman, played by Shawn Ashmore. According to an interview with Nerd Reactor on YouTube, Shawn Ashmore has not been contacted for Avengers Doomsday. However, he is open to reprising the role as Bobby Drake/Iceman. Ashmore had a very substantial role in the very first trilogy, and he had a sizable role in Days of Future Past. And I think this kind of falls under the fun surprise category to see him after a decade of no Iceman in any X-Men related project. But it's kind of tough to say because, well, a lot of the X-Men that they've announced so far are pretty prominent members, i.e. Beast, Professor X, Ian McKellen's Magneto, even though he's technically not an X-Men, but you get my point, they're mutants. Whether or not Iceman does make an appearance, I have to wonder if maybe it would be stock footage or maybe if it would be something new. I don't know, but it would be really cool, pun intended, to see Shawn Ashmore reprise his role one last time as Iceman for Avengers Doomsday, maybe even Secret Wars, but we'll see what happens. Overall, I'm going to put this in the fun surprise category. All right, next up we've got Shadowcat, played by formerly Ellen Page, now Elliot Page. If Elliot Page were to reprise the role of Shadowcat in Avengers Doomsday, I would be pleasantly surprised. This is one casting call I would not be against because, in my humble opinion, representation is 100% important, and if Shadowcat were to come back, we all know which heads would roll, but that's on them. We love it when man babies cry, and I would love to see Elliot Page reprise the role as Shadowcat, especially in a post-transition. That would be very interesting, and it would be a first, honestly, and I think we need more of that. I think we need more of that representation. Although there has been no confirmation of whether or not Page has been in contact with Marvel, it is tough to say whether or not they are in consideration for a return, because as far as I can tell, there has been no interviews, there's been no confirmation in one way or the other, there's been no questions asked, so it's kind of tough to say. So I don't know. I'm going to categorize this as the I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I'm just going to be hopeful. I'll put it that way. Hopeful for a return. I'll categorize it as that. Okay, this next one is kind of a twofer, but it gets two birds with one stone. And that is, of course, Deadpool, played by Ryan Reynolds, and Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman. Now, hot off the success of Deadpool and Wolverine, Reynolds has made it clear that Deadpool is a character that should be used sparingly outside of some own solo shenanigans. While the first two films were produced under 20th Century Fox, Deadpool and Wolverine went to great lengths to include things from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as the film was in fact produced by Marvel Studios. There are a number of nods that would lean into the possibility that Deadpool and Wolverine subsequently are likely in this movie, if not absolutely probably in Secret Wars. Considering Deadpool makes the joke to Wolverine about him playing the role until he's 90, and Reynolds and Jackman along with Sean Levy playing coy on their inclusion in the dual projects, more specifically Secret Wars than anything, because it wasn't exactly stated what Avengers 5 was at the time. Whoever interviewed them specifically said Secret Wars, and they were kind of mum but cheeky about it. I will say it is more likely than not that Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are probably in Doomsday and most likely guaranteed for Secret Wars. And if they are in Doomsday, that would probably be the ones where, well, they're probably the fun ones you save for last. But, who knows? I 100% believe that they are going to be in Secret Wars. Doomsday, it's a strong possibility, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just showed up in a post-credits capacity. Overall, though, I do firmly believe that Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman will be along for the ride in some regard. All right, next up is X-23 Laura, played by Daphne Keane. If you wanted to have a Wolverine for Doomsday, but not have it be Hugh Jackman, there is a possibility that Laura could have a substantial role within Avengers Doomsday. Daphne Keane has made no bones about reprising the role for future installments, and the fan demand for Keane to continue the legacy started by Hugh Jackman has gained a lot of online vocal support, as well as Daphne Keane making it abundantly clear that she would 100% show up for any Avengers movies because she wants the opportunity to have X-23 interact with some of the Avengers, and I think that would be a very fun dynamic. Now, will she appear in Doomsday? Maybe. Will she appear in Secret Wars? Probably. But I'll just categorize this as a probably fun surprise, if anything at all. All right, next we've got Blade, played by, of course, Mr. 1 Wesley Snipes. While the Blade films featuring Snipes were produced by New Line, the character's inclusion in Deadpool Wolverine has sparked some conversation online about the character's resurgence and possible inclusion in future projects. Also, Blade says, and I quote, "There's only one Blade, only ever going to be one Blade." Granted, that could be a cheeky comment in Deadpool's pan to the camera indicating the fourth wall break, knowing full well that Mahershala Ali's Blade is on the horizon. Maybe. But still, the character could pop up again, but Deadpool and Wolverine serves as more of a thank you to that era of Marvel films. I think there is a chance Blade could pop up again for one final bout before Mahershala Ali takes the torch. Hopefully. I'm going to put this one also under fun surprise, but I'm not holding my breath for Blade if he does show up. If it happens, cool. If not, whatever. I'm not tripping too hard about it. Again, I think that the send-off in Deadpool Wolverine was more than enough, but hey, if he comes back again, he comes back again. Like, the man said it himself, only ever going to be one Blade, so. All right, next up, we've got Ghost Rider, played by Nicolas Cage, Mr. One Johnny Blaze. Rumors surrounding the actor's return began when Deadpool Wolverine was being developed, and while the hot-headed haunt of Marvel did not appear there, that does not rule out a possible appearance in either Doomsday or Secret Wars. After all, if Nicolas Cage can come back for a cameo as his defunct Superman in The Flash, there is no rhyme or ample reason why the character couldn't show up in either of the next two Avengers movies. Doomsday specifically, meh. Again, this could fall under a possible archive footage, world-ending situation, or maybe Nicolas Cage will come in for a day or two, do a quick shoot, get a big old bag of money, and be on his merry way. Or maybe best case scenario, the absolute best case scenario, he comes back for a full-on role in Secret Wars. But again, I'm going to put this one also under fun surprise, but I will not hold my breath in the same way for Blade easily. So, yeah. Overall, I'm going to put this one in fun surprise, but it would be cool nonetheless. All right, and last, certainly but not least, this is another twofer, the final twofer. This is the last one I'm going to go over, and that is, of course, Electra and Daredevil, played by Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck. This absolutely falls under the fun surprise camp more than anything. After getting a badass send-off in Deadpool and Wolverine, I have to wonder if Jennifer Garner is game for more Electra, or if Marvel would rather take the time to bring back Elodie Young instead. I would also be shocked to see Ben Affleck put on a version of the Daredevil suit after more than 20 years, especially since he has ruled out any desire to want to return to the superhero genre filmmaking anytime soon. Then again, money talks. If they wanted to bring him back and the price is right, he probably would do it, but I'm not going to speak for Ben Affleck. That's just not my place. But considering Charlie Cox has turned the role into his own, it feels like the mantles of Daredevil and Electra have been formally handed over. Still, I wouldn't say no to Jennifer Garner or Ben Affleck coming in for Doomsday or even Secret Wars for that matter. But until then, I'm going to put this as a unlikely fun surprise. Yeah, that's where I'm at with that. All right, now that we've got the legacy pre-Marvel Studios era of characters out of the way, we now move into the actual roster of characters within the MCU from Marvel Studios proper. There are some names that were noticeably absent, some for obvious reasons, others for surprising reasons, I'm sure. But in this section, I will clarify who I think, personally, from the MCU may or may not show up for Doomsday and subsequently Secret Wars. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe Kevin Feige has stated not everyone will be present for these two movies. So, let's get into it. All right, first up on the roster, we've got, of course, War Machine, played by Don Cheadle. The last time we saw Colonel James Rhodes was, of course, in Secret Invasion. This project left a sore spot in many fans' eyes, given the confusing nature of when exactly his character was taken over by a Skrull. That said, regardless of that fiasco, having War Machine back in action for another round with some old and new friends would be a nice return to form for the veteran character. Considering Cheadle is one of the few actors who's lasted since Phase 1, first appearing in Iron Man 2 after taking the mantle over from Terrence Howard, it would also be fitting to see his reaction to his former best friend, now the biggest bad for the Avengers, to face next, while no hard confirmation has been stated by neither Don Cheadle or Marvel Studios. I feel like he is likely going to show up in one, if not both, Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, respectively. Okay, moving on, we've got Hawkeye, played by Jeremy Renner. The last time Clint Barton was shown in the MCU was his own series, Hawkeye. The
The character may have been semi-retired following the events of Endgame and is now training Kate Bishop, but that would not stop him from answering the call to return in the event of a universe-ending threat. Jeremy Renner has even alluded to the fact that he will likely be in Doomsday and also probably Secret Wars. I would put Jeremy Renner's involvement as a close to confirmed rather than not. Besides, half the fun of Doomsday will be seeing the original members' reactions to Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom, Clinton Barton included in that. Okay, next up is the big green giant himself, Hulk, played by one Mark Ruffalo. The last time Bruce Banner was seen in the MCU, he was seen at a family gathering introducing his son Scar to the family in She-Hulk. While the rights to the Hulk are a little confusing, that only applies to his solo adventures in film. The Hulk has been a mainstay in every single Avengers movie, and while it has not been confirmed by either Marvel Studios or Mark Ruffalo, I can't imagine Marvel's big green giant not making an appearance in some capacity in one, if not both, upcoming Avengers movies. When it comes to the Hulk family, I think the likelihood of Bruce appearing is far more likely than She-Hulk or Scar, but I'd be happy to be wrong. Considering Avengers movies inherently bring in multiple people and the Russo brothers are good at juggling multiple characters in a single film, it would not shock anyone in the least to have a few scenes with the Gamma-filled family. At the very least, Bruce Banner does feel like a safe bet for the next two Avengers movies. Alright, next up we've got the cosmic Captain Marvel 1, Brie Larson. I'm gonna be blunt. I firmly believe that Brie Larson is 100% in Avengers Doomsday and probably Secret Wars. Considering Kelsey Grammer's Beast was shown as a surprise cameo at the end of the Marvel Saving Monica Rambo, I don't doubt that Brie Larson will have a part to play in Avengers Doomsday, not only to find her best friend's daughter, but also because the Avengers are going to need all the help they can get to combat the likes of one Doctor Doom. She was also shown alongside Wong and Bruce Banner when recruiting Simu Liu's Shang-Chi. Even though Brie Larson may not have gotten a chair during the cast announcement, I would be quite surprised if Carol Danvers was absent from Avengers Doomsday. Captain Marvel is also one of the strongest heroes in the universe at the moment, and Carol's only been in one Avengers film thus far, being Endgame.
Okay, next we've got Mariah and Monica Rambeau. While the mother of Monica Rambeau from the sacred timeline of the MCU has passed away, two variants were shown in Multiverse of Madness as well as the Marvels. Given the post-credit sequence in the Marvels surprised everyone with Kelsey Grammer's Beast, one has to wonder if this version of Mariah, known as Binary, along with Monica, will make an appearance in Doomsday or even Secret Wars. Despite the Marvel's lackluster box office performance, the inclusion of Kelsey Grammer's Beast in Doomsday could be the same one from the Marvels. If that is the case, the chances of the mother-daughter duo making an appearance seems more likely than not. However, if the Beast we see in Doomsday is not from the Marvels, but also from another separate reality than the one Monica landed in at the end of the Marvels, the appearance of both characters feels less likely. For now, we will just categorize this as a possibility 50-50.
Alright, next up is the head honcho himself, Mr. 1 Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson. Nick Fury is one of the few characters to appear in all of the previous Avengers movies, having played a pretty substantial part in the first film while retaining cameo-ish plus roles in the subsequent follow-ups. I don't think he's going to have a substantial role, but at the very least, he will likely show up. Whether or not he makes it out of alive and into Secret Wars is also a possibility, but I could see a situation where Doom actually kills Fury in this film as a means of a send-off. Considering Robert Downey Jr. is the one playing Doom, it would be quite the shock to witness Doom kill Fury, much in the same way Loki killed Coulson in the very first Avengers movie. Overall, I think the likelihood of Nick Fury showing up for Avengers Doomsday is more likely than not. Alright, this next one is kind of a cheat because it's involving multiple actors, but of course it is the Eternals. I don't think the Eternals are likely to show up in any regard. Considering that they establish in that film that the Eternals do not interfere with earthly conflicts, I don't really believe that they would come to the aid of the Avengers to assist in the battle for Doom. They could, but given the characters didn't really leave much of a mark, and the only other time anything has been referenced from their film is Celestial Island and Captain America Brave New World, I have my doubts that the remaining members of the Eternals will show up. Unlikely, but would be a fun surprise if they did, but I'm going to categorize this as unlikely. Okay, next up we've got Scarlet Witch, played by Elizabeth Olsen. Olsen has confirmed that she will not be reprising the role for either Doomsday or Secret Wars. Given that the Scarlet Witch met her demise at the end of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, it stands to reason that the actress has no reason to lie about this. Also, Elizabeth Olsen has confirmed to THR that she is working on other projects. Granted, this is the Multiverse Saga, we know at least a variant of Wanda and her twins live in Universe 838 from Multiverse of Madness. And while plenty of actors have lied about their involvement with these projects in the past, I don't think Elizabeth Olsen has any real reason to be dishonest about this. Yes, it would be a fun surprise to see Scarlet Witch back in action, but I find the likelihood of her character returning to be more unlikely than not.
Alright, next up is America Chavez, played by Xochitl Gomez. After the events of Multiverse of Madness, America Chavez chose to study under Wong and Doctor Strange. Given that America Chavez can traverse the multiverse, the character could be an integral player in the upcoming conflict against Doctor Doom. While Xochitl Gomez did not receive a chair, the likelihood of her character showing up in the film, given the nature of her abilities, lends itself well to the story, and the actress's involvement for the project remains unconfirmed, despite recent rumors. We'll categorize this as a possibility.
Alright, next up we've got Wong, played by Benedict Wong. Benedict Wong will probably have a part to play in one, if not both, Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. The question is, how long does Wong survive before meeting his end to effectively pass the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme on to Stephen Strange? Either way, while not receiving a chair, considering Wong's inclusion across Phase 4 from recruiting Shang-Chi to being present in She-Hulk, I can't imagine that the current Sorcerer Supreme would sit aside while Doctor Doom lays waste to multiple universes. File Wong's inclusion under highly likely to show up in one, if not both, films. Okay, next up we've got Doctor Strange, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. Initially, Benedict Cumberbatch did an interview earlier this year stating he would not be in Doomsday, but not long after that, he later clarified he was in fact in Doomsday. He probably misspoke. Despite also not receiving a chair, I think it's a pretty safe bet to include the up-and-coming Sorcerer Supreme to join in on the impending battle with Doctor Doom, both in Doomsday as well as Secret Wars. Given the narrative of incursions and the multiverse and his second film touching on the concept of the multiverse, it would be strange if the good doctor did not make an appearance in one, if not both, upcoming Avengers movies, even if his last movie ended with him going in the dark dimension with Clea with his now third eye awakened. Now we move on to Moon Knight, played by Oscar Isaac. Now, if Avengers Doomsday was still being called Kang Dynasty and Kang the Conqueror was still the villain, I would say the likelihood of Moon Knight appearing may be much greater than it is now. However, considering Moon Knight has had a single season of a show where he did not interact with any of the other main characters from the MCU, I do not see a plausible entry point for the character to join the ranks against Doctor Doom. Also, Moon Knight just happens to be one of those characters that operates much better under a solo setting anyway, even if the character interactions from the comics make for interesting banter between Mark Spector and his alternates opposite other characters in the universe. Filed under highly unlikely. Alright, next up is everyone's favorite android, Vision, played by Paul Bettany. Whether or not Vision will play a part in Doomsday is probably a good 50-50. However, considering the character has not been seen since WandaVision and is getting his own series, where James Spader's Ultron is coming back to, the series debuts sometime in 2026. It is tough to say whether or not Vision could appear in Doomsday. Secret Wars feels more likely, but for now I will file Vision's inclusion in Doomsday as a highly possible fun surprise, given that both the Vision Quest series as well as Doomsday are both filming concurrently in the UK at Pinewood Studios. So, if you wanted to kill two birds with one stone, if he is in Doomsday, you could film his scenes for both projects accordingly at the same studio. Whether or not it actually does happen remains to be seen. Alright, now we're going to talk about Peter Quill and the new Guardians of the Galaxy, Chris Pratt, and collectively other actors and actresses. Chris Pratt has basically confirmed he will be back for one, if not both, Doomsday and Secret Wars. The remainder of the Guardians, both old and new, is entirely up in the air. After Volume 3 giving an elegant send-off to Gamora, Drax, and Nebula, I have my doubts about whether or not any of those characters will show up, especially since both Zoe Saldana and Dave Bautista have expressed that they are very much done with those characters and want to focus on other things. Karen Gillan could come back, but on the caveat that you'd have to explain why she left Drax alone on Nowhere with the rest of the children they rescued in Volume 3. As for Rocket, Groot, and the new Guardians, That would be another fun surprise, but given the high number of people confirmed already for Doomsday, I feel like the new Guardians would probably have a better chance of showing up in Secret Wars. So, ultimately, Peter Quill? Very likely. Everyone else kind of depends on who you're talking about. All right, next up we've got the good Captain America, played by Chris Evans. Chris Evans has been debunking credible and non-credible trades about his return as Steve Rogers, while the Wrap states not only he and Haley Atwell are returning for Doomsday. A recent report from THR says Evans is, and I quote, happily retired. However, Chris Evans did come back for another turn as Johnny Storm in Deadpool Wolverine. I think the reporting of him appearing in Doomsday is questionable. Still, the Russo brothers and Chris Evans made 4 movies together, but since Anthony Mackie has taken up the role and the Shield, I think this is another case where, much like Elizabeth Olsen, we can take the actor at their word. It is important to note, if he doesn't reprise the role for Doomsday, that does not mean he will stay retired for Secret Wars. If I had to guess which one Chris Evans would return for, it would more than likely be Secret Wars. Doomsday is already going to be a massive movie in and of itself, but Secret Wars is the finale of a multitude of eras of Marvel movies. While retired, Chris Evans said a return to Steve Rogers would require something truly special, and I do believe that Secret Wars would be that special thing. Speaking of Haley Atwell, next up is Peggy Carter. As for Haley Atwell, her return to Peggy or Captain Carter feels more ample for one, if not both, Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. Despite Captain Carter getting her role cut short in Multiverse of Madness, the show What If has displayed another variant of Captain Carter. So the idea of another one coming in to join the crusade against Doom and his multiversal conquest is not out of the realm of possibility. You know, a really good money shot would be Chris Evans, Anthony Mackie, and Haley Atwell all posing together with their shields. That would definitely be something to talk about. Anyway, Peggy Carter's inclusion in Doomsday, more so as Captain Carter than anything, feels like it could probably and is happening, considering a THR article published in early April noted that her attorney did close a deal for Haley Atwell to return in both Doomsday and Secret Wars. Atwell may not have gotten a chair, but the likelihood of appearance feels more likely than it does not. So I will categorize this one as highly likely. Next up is Evangeline Lilly, aka the Wasp. While Paul Rudd was given a chair for Avengers Doomsday, Evangeline Lilly was not. Due to the actress taking a break from acting, it sounds like the Wasp will not be present for Avengers Doomsday, maybe even Avengers Secret Wars. However, since Doomsday and Secret Wars are not being filmed back-to-back, there is a chance Hope Van Dyne could return for the big finale. Remember, both Ant-Man and Wasp were not present during Avengers Infinity War, and Ant-Man played a big part in Endgame. I could see a situation where the tables have turned, Ant-Man gets a substantial role in Doomsday only for Wasp to come in and pick up the baton in Secret Wars. Regardless, it kind of sounds like Evangeline Lilly will not be in for Doomsday, but I would not count her out just yet for Secret Wars until confirmed otherwise. Until then, as far as Doomsday is concerned, I will put this in the highly unlikely category. All right, next up we've got quite the lineup of characters, and they are currently being referred to as Young Avengers or the Champions, take your pick. Characters like Kamala Khan, Kate Bishop, Cassie Lang, Billy Maximoff, Ironheart, Eli Bradley, they could show up in Doomsday, but I honestly feel like they have a better chance at making some kind of grand third act cameo appearance for Secret Wars for one final battle. To be brutally honest, I think a lot of the legacy characters who were introduced in Phase 4 and 5, as well as some who could get introduced in Phase 6, are going to get further expanded on once the Multiverse Saga is concluded and we move into the next phase of MCU storytelling. Basically, anyone who is introduced or has a show on Disney Plus who was not already confirmed for Doomsday feels less likely for Doomsday than Secret Wars, and even Secret Wars only feels like a possibility. Marvel has stated that not everyone introduced in this saga will appear in the next Avengers movies, which makes sense. There were a lot of characters introduced throughout Phase 4 and 5 who do not have a whole lot to do with the overall arc that ties into what is happening with both Doomsday and Secret Wars. Right now we've got the blind lawyer from Hell's Kitchen, Mr. Daredevil, played by Charlie Cox. Matt Murdock has had quite the resurgence. Once the character officially returned in Spider-Man No Way Home, the Netflix era of Marvel television officially became canon to the MCU. Granted, a lot of the next Netflix stuff played in that sandbox already, despite not receiving an acknowledgement from the film side for a long time. But that was due to leadership differences more than anything. Since Marvel Studios has taken over the television arm of Marvel Entertainment, Charlie Cox's return as Daredevil was met with universal praise. Season 1 of Born Again just finished, Season 2 is still filming, but while Marvel's favorite hornhead hero could make an appearance in Doomsday, it's possible. We've seen footage for one project shot in another country before, while principal photography happens elsewhere. This is not new. That said, I remain unsure about Daredevil popping up in Doomsday. There needs to be a solid story reason for Daredevil to join in, or, maybe Matt Murdock just sues Doom for the destruction of the multiverse. That would be one excellent way to bring him in. In all seriousness, I would be okay with Daredevil sticking to his own show, but would not say no to an appearance in Doomsday or Secret Wars. This also applies to the rest of the Defenders as well as the Punisher. So I will just go ahead and put this as fun surprise, a highly unlikely fun surprise.
All right, next up we've got Aoye, played by Denai Guerrera. Aoye fought alongside Wakanda in both battles against Thanos, as well as the Talakana on numerous occasions throughout Wakanda Forever. If anything, Aoye has proven she is a fighter for this world. After being dismissed as leader of the Dora Milaje in Wakanda Forever, the last time Aoye was seen was saving Everett Ross, implying that she probably is making her way stateside. Regardless of wherever Aoye may be by the time Doom does show up, she will likely be ready to fight, much like Shuri and M'Baku. We're going to go ahead and categorize this as a high possibility, even if both Denai Guerrera or Marvel Studios has confirmed otherwise. Given the character's nature to fight alongside respective other Marvel characters, it just seems likely that she would also be included in the upcoming battle against Doctor Doom. So again, high possibility. All right, next up is Jane Foster, played by Natalie Portman. While the character of Jane Foster was last seen in Thor: Love and Thunder, unfortunately, Jane does die at the end of that movie, but is met by Heimdall at the gates of Valhalla in a post-credit sequence. I think the likelihood of Jane Foster appearing in Secret Wars feels more possible than Doomsday, given the stacked cast as it is and the nature of what goes into both versions of the Secret Wars storyline. I just feel that the character would be better served there than in Doomsday. After all, Natalie Portman has not commented on any kind of possible return, even if the post-credit scene in Love and Thunder hints at any kind of possibility, not only for her character, but Heimdall's as well. Let's go ahead and categorize this as unlikely. All right, next up we've got Valkyrie, played by Tessa Thompson. As the leader of New Asgard, it would be a shame not to see the reprisal of Valkyrie to come to the aid in the fight against Doctor Doom. Given that she fought alongside Thor and the rest of the Avengers against Thanos, as well as Gore the God Butcher, it stands to reason that she will likely have a part to play in Doomsday, and hopefully Secret Wars as well. Let's go ahead and categorize Valkyrie as highly likely possibility. Okay, next up we've got the Loki variant, Sylvie, played by Sophia Di Martino. Given Tom Hiddleston's inclusion in Avengers Doomsday, I would bet that we will likely see the fan-favorite Loki variant, Sylvie. If Doctor Doom aims to end the multiverse, that would in some form put him in direct contact with Loki, given what transpired at the end of Season 2, where Loki tied the multiverse into Yggdrasil. If Doom is to get to Loki, that could in turn put him in contact with the TVA by mere association, and if anyone would be there to protect Tom's Loki, it would more than likely be Sophia Di Martino's Sylvie, probably alongside Mobius. It would also be a really sweet to see Sylvie interact with Thor, amongst other characters from previous MCU projects. So I'm going to go ahead and put this as a high possibility. Next up is the Titanic Thanos, played by Josh Brolin. As I mentioned earlier, Brolan has expressed interest in returning as Thanos to the MCU. The Russo brothers are at the helm of both Doomsday and Secret Wars, and while Thanos got dusted at the end of Avengers Endgame, various variants have come up through the What If animated show, which is rumored to have some kind of significance in one or both upcoming projects. Thanos returning would be a fun surprise, and in the event the page from Secret Wars number 8 does get homage or outright film panel for panel, which involves Thanos getting his skull and spine ripped from his body by God Emperor Doom, fans everywhere would surely lose their minds in the theater. Let's just go ahead and categorize this as a highly possible fun surprise, given the alchemy at play between actor, desire, as well as directors in the chair, coupled with the nature of the story that they are being inspired by. Okay, next up is Black Widow, played by Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson recently made it very clear that Natasha Romanoff is indeed dead and the character should be left alone. She saved countless lives by her sacrifice in Avengers Endgame, and if the actress wants to honor that, then I completely respect that decision. I also think if Disney forked over enough money, Scarlett Johansson would return for, at the very least, Avengers Secret Wars. Rumors regarding Doctor Doom assembling his own evil version of the same Avengers for Secret Wars have been circulating for some time, and that would likely be one way you could justify having Scarlett Johansson come back in some capacity, even if she is not playing Natasha Romanoff, but rather a variant of. Marvel also actually has a really interesting opportunity here to do something fun and bring in Emily Blunt as a variant of Natasha, considering Emily Blunt was in talks for the character all the way back to Iron Man 2 when that movie was being developed. It would be a bit of a full circle moment and a fun fan Easter egg. Also, her husband John Krasinski played a variant of Reed Richards in Multiverse of Madness after being fan cast as Richards for a number of years, and of course, he even auditioned for the role of Captain America back in 2010. But overall, I think Scarlett Johansson's likelihood of appearing in Doomsday is less likely than it is for Secret Wars, so we're going to go ahead and categorize this as highly unlikely. Alright, next up we've got Pepper Potts, played by Gwyneth Paltrow. While her return has not officially been confirmed, Gwyneth Paltrow has stated that she is open to returning to the MCU, and given that Doomsday has Robert Downey Jr. playing the villain, it would only continue the trend of how does this character react to Doom being revealed to looking like Tony Stark? If Pepper Potts, and even subsequently Morgan Stark, see Doom's face, the reaction would likely be very heartbreaking for both characters. Imagine laying the love of your life to rest to only have someone look exactly like him coming to your universe to effectively destroy it. The irony of having the man who saved the universe now be the destroyer. Would Pepper put the suit back on to join the fight? That I'm not entirely sure about, but Gwyneth Paltrow's return to the MCU almost feels like a guarantee rather than wishful thinking. I'm going to put this as high possibility? Yeah, we'll go with high possibility. Okay, the big one. SpiderMan, played by Tom Holland. SpiderMan's inclusion is arguably one of the biggest question marks regarding Avengers Doomsday, as Holland is currently filming The Odyssey, directed by Christopher Nolan, and then will begin preparation for the next Spider-Man film titled Brand New Day. Brand New Day releases a mere 2 months after Avengers Doomsday, and the speculation regarding Holland's webhead is a constant point of conversation. There is a strong possibility that if he is in Doomsday, he could film his scenes for both projects concurrently, but that is not a guarantee. Considering the Marvel-Sony deal makes this character's inclusion in the MCU as a whole a bit of a headache already. Given the control Sony has over the character, Marvel Studios still has creative control over making the movie while Sony distributes. What will boil down to whether or not Spider-Man is in or out depends entirely on the story they choose to tell and what elements of Brand New Day are retained from the source material, while also keeping in line with what has been established in the MCU. Currently, nobody knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man, let alone that Peter Parker even exists. He has a fresh beginning, and the next solo film will likely explore how a seasoned Peter Parker, no longer in high school, gets by on his own without the help of anyone. Brand New Day could function similarly to Doomsday in the same way that Ant-Man and the Wasp worked in conjunction with Infinity War. Meaning, the events of Brand New Day could happen concurrently or lead directly into the aftermath of Doomsday, or the events of Doomsday also play a part into the story of Spider-Man Brand New Day, and Brand New Day takes place in the aftermath, possibly maybe even on a battle world or whatever world Doom could create in his conquest to destroy the multiverse. I think it's safe to say Spider-Man will be in Secret Wars, but the possibility of Tom and even Andrew coming back in for that as well, but Doomsday is very tough to say. Ultimately, in my mind, it's one of two possible scenarios. Number one, Holland's Spider-Man is absent from Doomsday and Brand New Day happens concurrently leading into the aftermath of Doomsday, but he will then show up in Secret Wars. Or, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is in Doomsday, and the aftermath of Doomsday leads directly into Brand New Day. Overall, I would like to see Spider-Man in both films, but I would be surprised. Actually, no, I would not be surprised if he did not show up in Doomsday and only made an appearance in Secret Wars. Alright, last and certainly not least, the one, the only, Iron Man, played by Robert Downey Jr. The Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it today began with Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. Robert Downey Jr. is now playing Victor Von Doom. one of the most iconic actors in the history of cinema went from playing one of the universe's biggest heroes to one of the biggest villains in Marvel Comics. There has never been anything done like this before, and this is one of the biggest gambles for the studio in a long time. When Robert Downey Jr. was chosen to play Iron Man, it was a gamble then, and I would say now it's arguably an even bigger bet. Still, there is ample room for Robert Downey Jr. to pull double duty and reprise his role as Tony Stark not only for Doomsday, but also Secret Wars. To what extent would remain to be seen. The opportunity for an actor to play both hero and villain in the same movie is very rare, and this would be an interesting dichotomy, but also showcase to the extent of what range Robert Downey Jr. has displayed over the last 20 years. His inclusion as Victor Von Doom is guaranteed. The option to play Iron Man once again would be hard to pass up, I'm sure. Much like Josh Brolin, Chris Evans, or any other actor to occupy two different roles within the same franchise, and I use that term loosely, this is a very unique situation where we could, in theory, see both Iron Man and Doom played by the same actor on screen at the same time if the opportunity did present itself. Endgame already established that you can pluck the Infinity Stones from certain points in time as long as they are returned to that exact moment in time from which they are taken, and I would imagine the same could apply to characters. To put it simply, the likelihood of Robert Downey Jr. playing both Doom and Iron Man in at least one of these projects is not totally impossible. So overall, I think Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man in one, if not both, that feels like a high possibility. At most.
Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars have a tall task of living up to the expectations that meet Infinity War and Endgame. This is not going to be an easy feat, but I believe Joe and Anthony Russo, along with Stephen McFeely and the massive cast, have nothing but the best intentions. For almost 20 years, Marvel Studios has proven time and time again that they should not be underestimated. Please don't take this video as any kind of confirmation, but I hope people take away that the fun of these next two movies will largely be based upon a couple of factors. Finally witnessing the Fantastic Four and X-Men interact with other Marvel characters, and how will some of these characters react to seeing Doctor Doom look like Tony Stark. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment if you think I missed anyone, or if there are any characters you are excited to see the most and potentially could see. I hope to do more stuff like this in the future. Remember, part of the journey is the end. Please like, share, and subscribe in case you already haven't. This has been another video from yours truly. Take care.